The mistake I often see people making is thinking that a survey is going to be a quick and easy way to get some information. And a survey done well is neither quick nor easy, right? It's a lot of hard work to create a good survey that's going to yield actionable insights.
Good morning. How well do you know your audience? Today's guest, Danielle Cooley, is a certified user researcher that specializes in helping business owners dive deep into who their customers are and then use that information to build a profitable business. Ready to learn more? Grab your cup of coffee, sit back, and spend time with us today to connect better with your audience. Welcome to the 15-ish minute coffee chat live stream and podcast with Anna and Selena. 10 seasons of helping entrepreneurs and small business owners build more profitable businesses.
Hey, hello everyone. We're so glad you are joining us today.
Good. Happy Valentine's Day.
I know, right? Let's just send some love out there to the world right now. All the love coming your direction.
Yes, you are loved by Anna and Selena today. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm ready for today's conversation for sure.
I know. Well, this is something near and dear to our hearts, right? Because well, first of all, we're business owners, and this is legit every business in the world. But also, we design a lot of websites, and so Selena and I do together. And so that website design and copy combination requires a lot of user research. We have to understand who the audience is in order to really make an effective website. And so for us, this is something that we are super excited to learn more about and get Danielle's expertise and comments on. And anyway, it's going to be awesome.
No, I'm excited
for our audience.
Yes. So. What is that question?
I'm going to just throw this out here. So we just want to know, if you're listening in right now, how well do you know your audience? What would you say? Should we rate it on a 1 to 10 scale? 10 being you guys are best buds. They're you've got your personal phone number, and a 1 being I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Yeah. It could be the garbage man, or it could be the CEO of Nike. I don't know who my audience is. But I think when we talk about user research, it's more than just that. There's even a deeper dive into what Danielle does. So you really understand, okay, so what about that garbage guy? What else about him is that he loves? What about that Nike CEO? Maybe just because we know he's a Nike CEO, maybe there's other things.
And it's very possible that between those two guys, they've got something in common, and they could both be your ideal client. You just don't know, right?
Right. No, totally. So like Anna says, drop in 1 to 10. How well do you think you know your audience for your business? Ooh, 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10 that came in. I know. I'm not quite sure where that puts you.
Yeah. But I think here's the thing though, right? If you're going to move forward and today you're going to get some valuable tips from Danielle, I think that's great. But at least you know where you are. So you know that there's room for improvement, right?
Absolutely.
So Anna, what would you say your number is?
Well, so I feel like it gets complicated because I have a couple of different audiences because I do a couple of different things, right?
Yeah.
So I would say for my milspouse transition audience, I feel like I'm right up there around an 8. I know them well. I've been through the process. I know what they're going through, right? But then when you look at maybe another part of an audience, I would probably, I would struggle a little bit. I am always ready to learn more, right? I am always ready to learn how I can better.
Yeah.
Look, we got an 8 out of 10 too. So we got both ends of the spectrum here, which is awesome.
Yes.
I'm excited to kind of hear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, keep answering that throughout the show, Anna. We'll keep dropping it in so we can do that with Danielle. But Anna, are we ready? We're going to just do Danielle's bio so we can bring her up.
Yeah, let's
do it. Okay, guys, here's her bio.
Danielle Cooley knows the things we should use to make life easier, not harder. She's been working in strategic research for more than 20 years, helping to level up products for such organizations as Hyundai, Graco, Equifax, Pfizer, Mayo Clinic, and Enterprise Rent-A-Car. She started her bespoke consulting practice in 2009, where she enjoys blending her passions for people, technology, and business for clients worldwide.
She seems phenomenal.
I know.
So let's bring Danielle up, Anna.
Hi,
Danielle.
Hello.
Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I know. I hope some of our comments were accurate as we were talking about.
I think they were right up to you. Phenomenal. We'll see.
Okay, I'm just curious what you thought about the 3 and 10. Ooh, Heidi says 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on some of that before we just dive into all the questions? Like, where can they go from the 3 out of 10? Where can they go from there?
Well, a 3 out of 10, there's almost nowhere to go but up. So
Right.
one of the first things we say is you get no insights from no user research. Right. And so generally, unless you are doing it completely in bad faith, some is better than none.
Right. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. I first of all, can we take our we do a little selfie with whatever cup is in front of you. If you have a coffee cup, if you have a water mug,
Charming.
that works. Yeah. Okay. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. It's like a, there's some automatic thing that happens after that says, So yeah. Okay, guys, we're going to start. We're going to just move some blocks around and we're going to dive in.
Yes. All right. So our first question from Danielle is anyway, I'm just going to throw it up there because it's an easy one for her to answer. But what does a user researcher do? And I think this is important for everyone to understand so we even know what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Take it away, Danielle.
Sure. So words mean things. I always like to say that when I'm breaking something down, I do research, which means, and with users. So a user, many people dislike that term, of course, but and we can get into the sort of sock matching on that if you'd like. But specifically, I do work typically with the aim of improving products, right? So that makes it different from market research, where you might talk to customers about their opinions about things. But we're really working with people to try to understand how to make products better.
So it would be so you're looking at who's buying these products. Tell us kind of a little bit what that process looks like. Who's buying the product, what they want from the product, and what if you have a service? How does that fit into that?
Absolutely. So services count. Product is a term we use very broadly. That could be a digital product. It could be a physical product. It could be a service. It could be really any kind of experience. And we do sometimes have to differentiate between the customer and the user. So that's typically more in B2B environments or even, think in a household, right? The parent's the buyer and the child might be the user, right? And who we're trying to create a good experience for. And so we have to look at both of those things typically. And what we do is talk to those people and, more importantly, observe them. So what people do and what they say they do are often very different things. The example I use, and not necessarily with malice, almost never with malice in this context. If I asked you, Anna, how long do you spend brushing your teeth in the morning? You'd say, a couple of minutes, right? But if I timed you, it would probably be closer to 35 or 40 seconds, right? It's just because you don't know how long you spend brushing your teeth in the morning. So we watch and observe. And that can take many, many forms. It can be what we call contextual research, where we go into the user's context of use. So if you're using something in your home, we might go to your home and understand, wow, how many dogs do you have running around? How much, is it bright? Is it dark? Is it cold? Is it noisy? What else is going on, right? Are there toddlers screaming or, alarms going off, things on the stove? If you are designing, say, a touch screen for a gas pump, you have to think about, okay, we're outside, we're dealing with summer, winter, nighttime, daytime, bright lights, road noise. So all of those sort of contexts of use. And also it can just be about the product itself. So we might do, typically more and more, these are done over Zoom type things, if it's a website or a web app. Physical products, of course, are harder to do that way. But just say, okay, let's pull up this website. Show me how you'd buy a sweater, and think aloud while you do that, right? So we sort of understand what's getting in the way of you buying this thing, assuming you want it.
Right.
We're not trying to manipulate you into doing something you don't want to do, but we're just trying to smooth this path so that you can do what you want to do. You want to do business with us.
Yeah.
We want to help you do that in the smoothest way possible.
I always find it so fascinating that some people don't realize the amount of work that goes into creating that user journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
The final product and how it launches and what is involved. Having a user research, maybe spending a week, like you said, in somebody's home, or just really, oh gosh, I don't know, I love that. Now I'm gonna, like, when I go pump gas today, I'm like, I wonder.
Well, it's never by accident, right?
Right.
And the trouble is you don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
You only notice it when there's friction, when there's a problem.
Right.
You don't hardly ever go to a gas pump and say, wow, I could really read this display very clearly.
Right.
You just notice when the glare is on it and you can't read it.
Yeah.
So all that hard work just sort of flies under the radar, but it does not happen by accident.
You are taking me back to, like, when I was in the restaurant business, we had there was like a little mission values that we all had to abide by. But one of them was anticipating the guest needs. And so it would be stuff like putting down the ketchup before the meal comes, where they don't even realize they needed the ketchup because you've created, like you just said, like you've created the environment for them to enjoy the cheeseburger.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, right? Absolutely. Unless there's friction. If I forgot to bring the ketchup and now this guy doesn't have ketchup to dip his fries in, I've caused friction. He's trying to fly down.
That'll be my new shorthand for you bring the ketchup.
Yes. I mean, that could be a cool, like, lead magnet title, right? Like, don't forget the ketchup, right? So, I love that.
Thank
my gosh.
So,
okay. So here's a little sub question for you, right? Yeah. Because one of the big things you hear is like, oh, well, everybody's not your audience. And if they don't love what you have, then they're not your audience, right? But what you're saying is almost not the opposite, but it definitely is different than that, which is you can make people your audience by improving and or changing parts of your product or service that would then appeal to them, is what you're saying.
Appeal to them does bring us more into the marketing side of things, which is one aspect. So an analogy I like to give is that we have ergonomic chairs, right, to fit the way our body already works. We have ergonomic keyboards to fit the way our hands naturally are positioned. And what we try to do is create products that fit the way your brain already works, right? So that you can just walk up and use, hopefully, one of these things. Certainly if it's a gas pump, you don't need training, And so we create products that fit your brain instead of trying to say, okay, if you think back to before this kind of work was more prevalent, right? The earliest days of computing or home computing. And you're like, okay, now I have to contort my brain and figure out how a software developer would have approached this. And if you are a preschool teacher or a lawyer or a truck driver or a cardiac surgeon, right? You don't think the way a software developer thinks. And so if you take that pivot and say, all right, what does a cardiac surgeon bring to this experience? They have all this education, certainly. They have all this background. They have these needs. What are they doing in this specific context, right? Maybe it's not an actual surgical application, but to really make sure that the product works the way they expect it to work.
Yeah, I could imagine the research also just validating that they are not your user. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where there's a CEO and a CFO going, no, I think that, user A is exactly who we should be utilizing. And the CFO is like, no, they're not. And I could imagine that user research could prove and validate, hey, I know you think this is your audience, but it's really not.
I told a client maybe a month or two ago to just straight up stop trying to serve emergency room physicians.
Yeah.
That, you are looking at different types of clinicians. The emergency department docs are not your audience. And trying to serve them is going to just do a disservice to the rest of your audience who's really interested in what you have to say.
Right. You're putting your efforts in the wrong area, right? Like you said. Gosh. Okay. I love that. Anna, let's move into that next question, because I wish like there was user research like capabilities all the time, so I could just be like, I'm doing this new offer.
So one of the things you talked about, Danielle, when we had originally looked at your intake form, is one of the things you said is a one-on-one interview. You learn more from a one-on-one interview than 1,000-person survey. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that and tell us like that difference between those two? Because automatically think 1,000 people responding is way better than just one person. But you're saying not necessarily.
Not necessarily. And it does depend on what you're trying to learn from those people. So there are circumstances where you do want to do a survey. The mistake I often see people making is thinking that a survey is going to be a quick and easy way to get some information. And a survey done well is neither quick nor easy, right? It's a lot of hard work to create a good survey that's going to yield actionable insights. So there can be it's just a cost benefit, right? Whereas having a one-on-one interview, you can probe more deeply, right? You get a lot more of the why. These quantitative things like surveys and other and web analytics, all of those sort of quantitative measures will often tell us what, but they don't tell us why. And to get that why, you really need to be able to ask those probing questions, do a lot of observation. And so doing that one-on-one interview will just give you a lot more insights. I will say, I don't recommend only doing one-on-one interview, because you never know which person's going to be the outlier, right? And if you do get that first one, but even just, a handful of them is a fantastic way to get really valuable, actionable information from your target audience about your product and how they expect it to work.
Yeah. No, I just thinking back to the interview that I did, just like this, that they're using for this college thing, but it's exactly, she's like, yes, we could put a survey out, but then I'm asking you some questions that, I'll never get the response that can go into our report after, that we'll not be able to capture from a survey. And I just went back to that and I was like, yeah, this is so fascinating. Seriously. I mean,
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, okay. All right. I love that. And I think, so just think about this is, Danielle is saying, consider the one-on-one interviews as getting that in depth. And I'm sure you could kind of scale it, start with your survey, but then get some information and then really tailor a really nice interview to go deeper into, I guess you could two-part it, but I mean,
sometimes a survey helps you identify what you want to discuss in your interview.
Yeah.
Or your web analytics will say, well, what's going on with this page?
Right.
And so you'll decide to do a deeper dive into that. But yeah, in general, as long as you go into it with good faith, maybe you do a little bit of homework about minimizing the bias in your questions, not asking leading questions. If you're really trying to learn something, then it can just be, you'd be amazed, right? How much value there is there.
Seriously. I mean, I love asking questions, and I really do like to do all the nuts and bolts and understand what makes it something work. So this is, to me, is like, if I don't have to write the question, but I get to ask the question and learn about it, I think I'd be down for this, Danielle. I'll be part of that. I want to be part of your team.
I might take you up on that. No, right?
I'm here.
She does love this. Selena does. She's I think that for me, it's super interesting because I'm definitely more on the marketing side, right? Where my marketing brain thinks about, that marketing portion of like getting somebody to want your product, as opposed to really looking at the product itself and saying, how can I make this product better? Not to appeal to more people, but to make the user happier in the end, right? And I think that's where people confuse the two different things for user research a little bit, right? Because my head automatically goes to, how can I make this something they want? Not necessarily, how can I make their experience using this thing or
better.
A better experience? So before we move on, I just want to drop this really quick. Apparently LinkedIn sound is causing some issues. So if for some reason it's not working, I dropped the link for our YouTube channel. So pop on over there and you can continue joining us from there. And apologies, I wish I was in charge of LinkedIn, but I'm not.
LinkedIn.
I cannot fix that today for us. But yeah, anyway, this one-on-one interview versus a 1,000-person survey is very interesting for me, again, because in my head, I'm like, no, I need more responses to know how I can appeal to the masses. And it really is me having to super switch my mindset about what is the end goal of what I'm trying to do through user research, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it works in conjunction. Like you could have a better marketing plan if you implement user research in that campaign or do you know what I mean? Like it makes you a more effective marketer, I would imagine, just because you know them so well that you know that when you go into this pocket of people that are not aware of your thing, you know how to market to them because we've researched enough to know that Bob is a lover of product A. He just didn't know product A existed until an ad popped up or, the commercial or the print ad or whatever marketing genius we used. I mean, I can see it working. It's just right.
Yeah, absolutely. There is some overlap, of course. I think, and it also depends on the organization sometimes. Where does this stuff live? It might live in a marketing department. If you think about an e-commerce site, I've been doing a lot of shopping where I needed the product dimensions, right? I'm really shopping by dimension, and it's very hard to find sometimes, right? And so knowing that, and then the marketing communications department has to know, like, this is information that we need. We've uncovered a requirement that is going to help you sell more product. And if the product itself, the thing you're buying, is better, we see huge gains from word of mouth marketing, right? So I give this talk about the business value of user experience and user experience research. And I talk about increased word of mouth marketing. And I pull up this chimney starter, it's called. It's a thing. I don't know if you're a griller. I'm not really, but it's a way you can sort of start your grill going and get everything smoking and fantastic. And I'm like, how many of you've heard of this? And oh my God, hands shoot up. I have that. It's amazing. I love it. I tell all my friends to get this chimney starter, and it's just like the most random product with this huge cult following, right? Because it works really well and it's really easy to use. And you see that from other people. I was looking for a payroll system recently, and all the logic was telling me to go this way. But I was like, but everybody who uses this just loves it. They love it. They gush about it, And so it was a really strong pull, really a thing that made it stand out. It's a competitive advantage.
Yeah. I definitely see that. Like one of the things you just said just struck like a chord with me in the sense that, what do they say? 90% of people buy after looking at reviews, right? So if you've got all of these user reviews saying it's easy to use, it works really well, it's fantastic product, whether you actually need a grill, chimney smoker, fire starter thing or not, you might feel inclined to buy it just because, if I ever did want to start a grill that way, this is the product I need, right? And that appeals to that again, that it's psychological, right? It's that psychological, oh, I might need this if I, or my brother loves to grill, or my spouse loves to grill, or, whatever that might be. This would be a great thing for them, because you think in your head. Anyway, very interesting, like that. It really is a competitive advantage to be able to say, not only is my product useful to this group of people, but it's the best product on the market for them. And that's where that user research comes in.
Yeah. The term user-friendly or easy to use, to me at least, means nothing coming from the company selling.
Right.
Right. Certainly if my colleagues in user experience tell me it's easy to use, then I start to believe them.
Yeah.
But even people outside of my field, of course, I'm like, okay, no, look at that.
Yeah.
I believe you. Yeah.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, when a company states that in their description, like easy to use product, I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I immediately go to the reviews and I look to see if somebody posted a photo, because I'm like, are you a fake review? Are you a paid review?
Right.
And then if they say it's easy, then I'm like, yeah, but I see what you're saying. And that's behavior that a user research is going to be observing. To help you, So
I mean, if you think about what you do personally, right? Like what you say, go to the website and then talk out loud as you buy this sweater, right? It's the same thing when we're thinking about something like that. So like I go to the reviews and then I click on recent because I want to know the most recent ones, not the ones from 3 years ago, right? And then I want to know, okay, so I see all these positive reviews here. Why did people hate it? Then I'll go to the 1-star reviews or the 2-star reviews, and I'll look through those. And if it's things like didn't ship fast enough, or the color was red, not green, and it promised me a green one, then I'm like, oh, these are silly. Like, I hate this company reviews, as opposed to there's an actual problem with the product itself, whatever that might be.
Yeah, so, trust in reviews is another whole topic. I guess I would just take this opportunity to say, like, you're thinking now about what you would do, which is fantastic, but then also think about if you're in more of a niche product, right? And you're not just describing a standard e-commerce experience like we tend to have as consumers, but okay, now I'm designing an online course system for continuing education for clinicians, right? That's a very different mindset than you have. So you can't sort of project, if it were me, I would X, right? You have to talk to them. You have to observe them. You have to understand them. And the other maxim we have is you are not your user. So you can't just sort of guess. Another story I have around that is, I was working on an app for bar owners and bartenders and servers in bars, lower end, higher end, but bars. And everyone around the conference table was a degreed professional working in e-commerce, web design, all of those things. And our only context for that was, well, if you're a bartender, you're probably working your way through school. And of course, that is not true at all. If you go talk to bartenders, they love their jobs. They maybe are aspiring to be a bartender in a higher end establishment, or they just work to live, right? That's the job that facilitates their hobby during the day. So breaking out of that context and remembering that just because everything you've experienced in that vein is X doesn't mean that's how X really is.
Yeah. Or what TV shows tell you, right? I mean, you're talking about stereotypes at this point, like, oh, the stereotypical bartender, right?
Right.
Yeah, super interesting. Okay, so I'm going to jump into question number 3, because now I think just kind of understanding better what user research is, what you can do with it, like how you can like digging deep into that. Our third question comes with, here you are, a small business owner, and you're doing a course. Remember, everybody who's listening now, Danielle said, product is very used very loosely. It's product, service. It's all kind of lumped into the word product. So if you are a small business owner, how can you conduct that kind of user research and then use that information effectively to help grow your business?
Mm-hmm. So it's almost a joke in our field as we say it depends, right?
Right.
It depends on a lot. The details would say would depend on your specific product or service, your specific target audience, where you are in your company's growth. But in the end, talk to people. Don't take their word for it when they say they brush their teeth for 2 minutes every morning, right?
Yes.
You.
And look, there's always someone with the timer toothbrush who throws my example out the door, but you know what I mean. And go in with good faith. Don't ask them least. You're like, hey, wouldn't it be great if is not the question you want to ask. You want to say just you almost think like you're a therapist, tell me more about that. Or, you'll watch them using things and they'll just go, right. And then you have to say, well, tell me more about, because they haven't articulated those thoughts to you. And obviously something has confused them. Something's, caused a little bump in their experience, good or bad. And you just want to know a little bit more about that, what that is. I think for business owners, sort of starting this process up on their own, where you can be, and even in large businesses, we talk about where we can be most effective, right? If I learn all this fabulous stuff about something that I know I don't have the time or budget to address for many, many years, well, maybe we want to talk about how we can train around it or how we can, add some hints here and there, but, I'm not fundamentally going to be changing that. I'm probably not going to be investing a ton into that aspect. So, think about what you can change. Think about what's aligned with your strategic direction. I always tell people to look at features or tasks that are most frequent, most profitable, either in terms of revenue or cost savings, right? Most valuable and most strategically important. Because if something's new, it's probably not going to fall into either of those first categories. But if it's a new offering you have or a new feature you're trying to evaluate that is aligned with your strategic direction, that's something that you want to get right.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a couple of questions from the audience and that I wanted to pull up. The first one says, with analytic heavy statistical research, how much emerging AI technology can do that heavy lifting for you?
Okay, so I'll caveat this by saying I am a qualitative researcher. I am not a quantitative researcher. I don't tend to dive deeply into those statistics. My answer to that question, though, is that emerging AI can do as much here as it kind of can anywhere else, right now.
Right.
Is that, it's only as good as the data it's been trained on. It can certainly help identify things, but having the tools to apply that to whatever statistics you have tends to be expensive. And, or you hire a data scientist. I think that's definitely something where we work cooperatively with the quantitative researchers, the data scientists, to understand where does the analytics flow into the qualitative research? Where does, conversion rates and, sales numbers and all of those things. But so emerging AI can help if you can afford it.
Yeah. Okay.
Good to know.
Yeah. Right. The second question, also from John that came in, is it necessary to protect your research with an NDA, which I think is interesting and probably ties back to last week's conversation where we talked about NDAs and contracts. But this is stuff that could potentially be very proprietary use knowledge.
And generally for things that are not released to the public yet and that are sensitive, we do absolutely use NDAs. That doesn't tend to apply to are we helping Gap sell more sweaters, right? It's more, I do some work with medical devices that are pre-market where if, that got out, it would be very, very expensive is the only word I can think of right now.
Right.
Detrimental, right? So like that's really valuable intellectual property that they need to protect.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. We do NDAs in those circumstances. And, those companies will also enforce them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much. Any other questions, Anna, from the audience before we?
No, those were the two big ones that were kind of just sitting in our little question comment box down there. But I do find what you have to say so interesting. Like, as a small business owner, I think that again, and as a marketing professional, right? I struggle to like separate the two that we've been talking about, user research and marketing research. Like they're so deeply ingrained for me, I guess, ultimately in the end. But I do love, like, you've definitely given me some like, light bulb moments where I'm like, oh, maybe I need to take another look at this thing that I do. And really, how effective is it for my end user? Are they getting what they need from me from this? And like, I just love that mindset. Like, it's not about getting as many people to just take what you have. It's about improving what you have so that the people that are using it love it even more.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Absolutely. I'll say another question that comes up very, very frequently is, okay, we've been talking about go talk to your users, go observe them, right? Yeah. Go do this. Where do I find them? How do I do that? Who do I talk to? And so I tend to refer everyone to this Medium article, which I just shared with you, Anna and Selena, that talks about, and usually when people are asking that question, it's how can I do it for cheap or free?
Yeah.
And so there is friends or family, but the important thing is that you talk to the people who fit your user profile, right? It doesn't help me figure out how to serve cardiovascular surgeons if I ask preschool teachers, and they do things on this application. So you do have to find that target. There's a lot of, friends and family outreach. There are hundreds of firms whose job it is to recruit participants for user and market research. And you tell them, I need cardiac surgeons with 10 years of experience who work in large teaching hospitals, and they find them for you, often at substantial expense. And then you do need to provide some remuneration or incentive to those participants for their time. It's just a small thank you. It's not necessarily income, and especially with those cardiac surgeons, right? You're never going to actually match their hourly rate.
Right.
Just sit with me for an hour. But, sometimes it's as easy as, I'll give you a coffee mug with our corporate logo on it. Or I did a study for Graco, the baby gear, and literally we gave high chairs to expectant mothers, like new in box. Here's your
That's the way to do
Graco
it.
high chair. Thanks for your time. And of course, that was very inexpensive for Graco and huge value to the end user. Typically, just a gift card or something, but there are a lot of creative ways to make that happen. So absolutely do that.
And this is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm a mom, and I had many Graco products in my house when my kid was born until the first couple of years, right? A stroller, a high chair, all the things. So, again, some people don't think about it, like you said, because they shouldn't have to, right? Because Graco did not forget the ketchup, right? Like they literally did what they wanted so that people are just happy with it. And they're just like, oh, wait, now it's my kid has chewed on it enough. I need to go get another replacement now because it's gone its course. So, oh gosh. Okay. I love that. And Anna, we shared the article in the comment section, so you'll see that there, but we will include that on our blog show notes too. So that way you can link over to there. You know what? I mean, I know you didn't call for it, but can we just share that framework that you had mentioned, Danielle?
I can talk about the framework all day.
Yeah, right. Because I found it fascinating. I loved it. Like, okay, so right now, if you're listening to the podcast, again, we will share this link, but Danielle is going to just talk about this strategic UX research framework article paper. I can't talk because I'm so excited.
It's her framework. Yes. Danielle's framework that she puts together to kind of just help explain this process a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
So this is the framework that I use in my consulting practice to think about how we're going after or even building a product or a feature or researching that product or feature, right? Trying to understand what we're doing. And it starts with a foundation of user research. So we really want to understand who is going to be using this, why are they doing it, what need do they have, right? Do I even grill? Do I need a chimney starter, right? And if so, how big is my grill? Like, am I doing it on a little patio or a ginormous, back mansion outdoor kitchen, right? How does that work? What do they come to this knowing? Because we all have this expectation, right? Like we think we know how Gap.com's checkout's going to work because we've done checkouts on 100 other e-commerce sites before that. So what does that do? And what's competing with that for their attention? I watched someone, I did an in-house observation of someone using a product, and they literally like every 2 minutes had to get up and go deal with their new puppy. And so there was no continuity of thought in the way the developers thought, okay, you sit down for 20 minutes, you do this task. And no, it was very much not that. And if you can imagine, this is built like a pyramid for a reason. If you skimp on the user research and narrow that band to really tiny, where maybe even you're making assumptions and it's a 1 pixel wide, stack, the rest of your pyramid gets very wobbly, right? And if you don't understand your user, you can't build any of the rest of this correctly, right? You're guessing. So on top of that layer of understanding who those people are, we say, okay, what are we going to give them? What is our content strategy? What is our plan for the creation of content and features? How we're going to deliver those content and features technically, or through what channels, and who's going to write it, right? Who's going to create it, and how are we going to govern those things? From there, we say, okay, how are we going to organize those content pieces that we just established? How are we going to structure those pieces of information or those features in a way that makes sense, right? We don't put copy in one menu and paste in another menu. Yeah. It's like we're going to group these things in a logical way. And then from that, we say, okay, specifically, what are those menus going to look like, right? How are they going to work? What is the interaction design that goes on top of that? What widgets will we use to implement those organized features? And then on top of that, I don't mean to give it short shrift, right? But many people think of user experience just as visual design. They'll say, I need colors and fonts. And you do need colors and fonts. And certainly if you do all of this work right, and then you create an application with super pale gray tiny font on a white background, then all of that is for nothing. So a really good visual design will enhance all of these things, right? Maybe you're using micro field validation, right? Or copy, and you can see it very clearly. So this is the framework we use. And it's, if you skimp it, if you skimp on interaction design, your visual design gets a little wobbly, but the rest of your foundation is secure. And the other thing this tells us is if you have, for example, a content strategy problem, your information architecture is not the solution to that problem, right? So you can't, if you don't understand who your users are, you don't just say, okay, we'll develop new content, because what kind of content for who, why? Yes,
you're wasting your energy by missing that foundation piece, right? Because you could be marketing to person B when the whole time it was A.
Yeah. And I mean, that's thread. Right? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just saying your marketing dollars, your product design dollars, all of that could be for nothing if product A or person A is not who you should have been designing for in the first place.
Absolutely. And we've got plenty of stories of that too, where lots of good, development and design effort that they just have to throw away and start over. I was going to say the other thread that runs through this that I'm still working on how to visualize is accessibility for users with disabilities of all the kinds, right? So if you don't do research with users with disabilities. You don't understand how their needs play into the full scope of needs. When you're doing interaction design or certainly content strategy, right? If we say we're going to have videos, we also need to have transcripts and closed captioning. If we're going to have audio, we also need to have visual descriptions of what's being heard. If we are going to have images, we need an alternative text, right? To say, so a screen reader can say, oh, this is a photo of Selena and she's wearing a blue shirt. So throughout all of these things, we want to take into account people with visual impairment, hearing impairment, motor impairment, cognitive impairment, and remembering that all of those things can be situational, temporary, or permanent, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about, I broke my arm a couple of years ago and I couldn't type very well. So then I was using these assistive technologies for a very short time, but it really was revealing, how many sites didn't support them and how poor they were. So really being able to take that into account.
I feel like we should just throw it out there to our audience right now. Your action list for today from this conversation is just those first 5 questions you have there for user research. Mm-hmm. Can you answer those for your existing products and services? Can you answer that for who is going to be using your product? Why? What do they know and not know? Could you answer those questions? I feel like this is such a great place to start for people to really say, are you an 8 out of 10 in understanding your user? Or did you think you were a 3, but you actually know them much better than you thought you did, right? Because I think that there's a lot of lost confidence in this area as well, where people are like, I don't know. I just have this thing and I love it. And somebody else will too. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. People like me are going to love it. Right. Mm-hmm. But they don't know how to define that necessarily in the right terms to be able to utilize it effectively.
Mm-hmm. It's really hard. And it's really tempting to say, okay, it's men aged 18 to 28 and who live in the city, live in urban places and have an income of at least, $120,000 a year. It's well, that's great, but that doesn't tell us anything about the rest of what's going on, right? And where they came from, what did they know about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And those as a marketer, I create personas all the time for people, right? That's one of the things that we do when we're trying to come up with who your user might be and what their attitude might be towards the content strategy that you have for your product or service.
But Anna, can you imagine if a business said, here is all of that information you need for your marketing plan?
It's like the Holy Grail.
Right.
Yeah. I have a 50 question survey and people are like, are you kidding? And I'm like, this is what I need to really be able to write effectively, right? Yeah. I need to understand who your end client is so that I can speak to them in a way that they get excited about your product and service. Ultimately.
Yeah. Last question, because I know we are definitely well over, but this is so beneficial for your business. Can I just ask you, what's one thing that a person like me and Anna, if we were trying to hire a user researcher to help us with our business, what should we be looking for to make sure they are a qualified person, that they're not just saying, I'm just a user research because I saw that I have the potential? How do we know they are legit?
Well, that is a good question, because there is not a sort of neutral, objective certification or anything like that you might find, I'm a board certified dermatologist or something like that, right? No. There is no such thing really. Experience goes a long way. I think asking about relevant past projects, what their approach was. And really the difference is knowing how they answer those questions, right? So maybe things about what do you think is the biggest mistake people make when doing user research? And, my answer to that would be things like talking to the wrong people, and asking, having too much bias in your approach. So that's a great It's a great question that honestly the industry has been wrestling with for decades. So good one.
Okay. I'm going to just be like, hi, pause for a second. I'm going to go just see Danielle and I'm going to just kind of ask her real quick. What does she think about you without you knowing?
We've done some of that in the practice, helped people hire, you know, and do some of that vetting and say, this is the person you need if that's the role you want them to play.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. We're gonna shuffle on to our toolkit, but Danielle, seriously, I have like 10 zillion questions, but I think this is, like I said, it's just like, I love the understanding of what you do. And like I said, which we're going to bring up, I might as well let's bring it up now. But the toolkit that that Anna and I are mentioning is, so I've mentioned it before in previous shows, like I'm taking a UX design course because we build websites and I want to understand, I want to be effective. I want our clients to have converting websites. So you need to understand the design. And what I had learned in this course is you don't just say, I'm a UX. There are so many different UX, UIs, types, and the researcher one really kind of like, I was like, oh my gosh, Anna, like this could be kind of coming down your forte because it's great. So if you think through this, like, oh, this is interesting, like maybe this is a lane that I want to be the next Danielle, right? Like I want to be her, own my own company, work for amazing brands and do that. Grow with Google has a course, Google UX Design Certificate, that kind of can get you started. I'm not saying that's where it is. That's just where I've started. I'm sure Danielle has other suggestions, maybe.
Happy to recommend a number of inexpensive or even free resources.
Cool.
Often your public library will have a subscription to some online course systems that have some really, really great courses in them.
Right. This is not just you wake up one day and say, I am a UX. You need to be certified, guys. You need to go through a course to understand, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I shy away from the word certified, but I have a master's degree in it. It's not something that you can learn in a week.
Right.
And really do well. And
okay. You have to be educated there. I'll use that word. You do need to be educated in this. You cannot just claim and say this is what you are one day without really knowing what a UX researcher does and how they do it. So anyway, this is kind of we'll have this on the blog. And then we will actually see if we can get from Danielle some of her resources, and we'll add that there as well. Let's see, what is next, Anna?
I did see a couple of other questions in the comments list that we didn't have time for. I am happy to address those. Just find me, write me. Always happy to talk shop with anyone who's genuinely interested. Yeah.
I love it. So you guys, you can go to her website. You can follow her on Twitter. I just did last week, or you can connect with her on LinkedIn, which I also have. And I am excited to kind of still continue to learn. So please continue the connections, with Danielle.
Absolutely. And again, all of this stuff is on our blog article, and it's all linked down in the comments. So you can just head straight there and then go to all those places. We've linked it. We've done all the work for you because we know that our end user loves that.
Yeah. So Anna, tell everybody about our tip jar today.
Okay, so our tip jar today, when traveling for work, if you have meetings on Friday and Monday, that weekend hotel stay can be deducted too. We want to thank Caitlin Eldridge of Eldridge CPA for that awesome tip. It's good to know as a small business owner, especially, that you can deduct the entire weekend. So Friday and Mondays aren't so bad for business
right?
Out of town.
Exactly. All right. I'm excited for next week, Anna.
Yes. So next week, this is what we have coming up. Doris Clark is going to be our next guest, and we are super excited to have her on. If you can always find us at annaandselena.com. The 15-ish minute coffee chat is all over the place on all of the podcast platforms. Please subscribe. Hit that little ding ding button, right? Subscribe and let us know that you're listening. Leave us comments. We are always here to answer them. And then connect with us on LinkedIn or all of the places. LinkedIn is kind of where Selena and I hang out the most. So if you'd like to reach out to us, if you'd like to be a guest on our show, or if there is a specific topic you would like to learn more about, please reach out and let us know, because we would love to find the perfect guest to speak on that for you.
Yeah. Danielle, thank you so much for being on today's show. Like, I don't know, I'm pumped now. I'm like, now I feel like, oh, thanks, Danielle. Incredibly time is helpful for me personally and professionally. Get it, John. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I think this is super valuable. And I think everybody in business should, in some way, make this the foundation.
Absolutely. You know, people ask me what vertical, what industry do you specialize in? I'm like, I don't have to. Everybody can do this.
Yes.
There's no niching required.
Translate.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But you guys, we'll see you next week. Thank you again to Danielle. We super appreciate it. Anna and I heart you big time. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes.
All the things. So Danielle, thank you for coming today with us.
Thank you so
we
much
appreciate
for having
it.
me, Anna and Selena.
No problem. All right. Bye, everybody.
Everyone. Have a great day.